And now, another word about the water. It was as clear as crystal, and the light was reflected back in every ripple and tiny wave, in almost dazzling bright colors. It was unbelievably soft to the touch, and its buoyancy was of the same nature as the atmosphere. That is to say, it supported whatever was on it, or in it. As it is impossible to fall here by accident, as one does on earth, so it is impossible to sink in the water. All our movements are in direct response to our minds, and we cannot come to harm or suffer accident. It is, I am afraid, rather difficult to give a description of some of these things without going beyond the range of earthly minds and experience. So much has to be witnessed at first hand to gain any adequate idea of the wonders of these lands. A short walk brought us to the church that I had seen in the distance, and which I had expressed a keenness to visit. It was a medium-sized building in the Gothic style, and it resembled the parish church familiar on earth. It was situated in pleasant surroundings, which seemed the more spacious by the absence of any railings or walls to define its ecclesiastical limits. The surface of the stone of which it was constructed had the newness and freshness of recent building, but in point of fact it had been in existence many years of earth time. Its exterior cleanliness was merely consonant with all things here. There is no decay, nor is there any smoky atmosphere to cause blackening and discoloration. There was, of course, no churchyard attached, even though some people cling so tenaciously to their old earthly religious predilections and practices here. It is hardly to be supposed that in erecting a church in which to carry them on, they would also include an entirely useless burial ground. Close beside the main door there was the customary notice board, but this gave only the nature of the services, which were those of the established church. No mention was made at all of the times of the services, and I wondered how any congregation of this kind could possibly assemble where time, as it is known on earth, has no existence. For here there is no night and day, by the alternation of which time can be measured. It is perpetual day. The great celestial sun forever shines, as I have already told you. Neither do we have the many indications of time that force themselves upon the earthly consciousness, such, for example, as hunger and fatigue, nor in the more lengthy passage of time, such as the aging of the physical body and the dulling of the mental faculties. Here we have no recurrent seasons of spring, autumn, and winter. Instead, we enjoy the glory of perpetual summer, and we never tire of it. As usual, I turned to my friend for information on this point of congregational assemblage. To gather the people to the church was perfectly simple, he said. Whoever is in charge has only to send out his thought to his congregation, and those that wish to come forthwith assemble. There was no need for bell ringing. The emission of thought is far more thorough and exact. No, the emission of thought is far more thorough and exact. That is simple so far as the congregation is concerned. They have merely to wait until the thought reaches them, either in a direct call to attend or by the urge to attend. But where does the ministering clergyman obtain his indication of the approach of service time? That question, I was told, raised a much greater problem. With the absence of earth time in the spirit world, our lives are ordered by events, that is, that are part of our life. I do not refer now to incidental occurrences, but to what on earth would be regarded as recurrent happenings. We have many such events here, as I hope to show you as we proceed, and in doing so you will see how we know that the performance of certain acts, individually or collectively, are clearly brought to our minds. The establishment of this church we were now inspecting saw also the gradual building up of a regular order of services, such as those who belong to its particular denomination on earth are familiar with. The clergyman who is acting as pastor to this strange flock would feel, by his duties on earth, the approach of the usual day and time when the services were held. It would be, in this respect, instinctive. It would, moreover, grow stronger with practice until this mental perception would assume absolute regularity, as it is considered on the earth plane. With this firmly established, the congregation have but to await the call from their minister. The notice board gave a list of the usual services commonly seen outside an earthly church of the same denomination. One or two items were noticeably absent, however, such as the provision for marriages and baptisms. The former omission I could understand. The latter could only imply that baptism was unnecessary, since only the baptized would be in heaven, where presumably they deemed this church to be situated. We went within and found ourselves in a very lovely building, conventional in design and containing little that is not to be seen in any such church upon the earth plane. There were some beautiful stained glass windows, portraying scenes in the lives of the saints, through which the light poured evenly from all sides of the church at the same time, producing a strange effect in the air from the colors of the window glass. Provision for heating the building was, of course, quite superfluous. There was a fine organ at one end, and the main altar, built of stone, was richly carved. Beyond this there was a certain plainness which in no way detracted from its general beauty as a piece of architecture. Everywhere was there evidence of a lavish care being expended upon it, which, considering where this church was existing, is not surprising, when it is remembered under what dispensation such a building can exist at all. We sat down for a little while, finding a calm and peaceful air about the whole place, and then we decided that we had seen all there was to be seen, and we made our way out into the open. Home of Rest. As we walked along, at least two of us pondered upon what we had seen and its implications. Our young friend, who told us her name was Ruth, put a number of questions to us, but I withheld any attempt to answer, since I was but a newcomer myself, in favor of my friend, whose name, Edwin, I have omitted to give so far. Ruth, it appeared, had never been an active churchgoer whilst on earth, but she was a kindly soul, and it was plain to see, plain to see also that her absenteeism from church-going had no deference to her ultimate destination, as viewed by the earth. Her service to others had done more for her spiritual welfare, all the outward display of congregational religion, which so often is but outward display. Like myself, she was very surprised to find, here in spirit, the complete paraphernalia of Orthodox religion. Edwin told her that she had only seen one example of it so far, and there were plenty of others. Having seen this, however, one had seen them all, more or less. Each denomination, of course, holds to its own particular creed and formularies, such as it had on earth, with a few minor differences, as we had just seen. Such spiritual somnolence is no novelty in spirit. The earth world is to blame. Religious contentions and controversies are at the bottom of all the ignorance and lack of knowledge that so many people bring with them into the spirit world. And if the minds of such people are stubborn, and they are unable really to think for themselves, then do they remain shackled to their narrow religious views, thinking it to be all the truth, until a day of spiritual awakening dawns for them. They will see that their slavish adherence to their creeds is holding them back. It is to be much lamented for everyone who leaves forever these misguided congregations, another will come to fill his place, until the time comes when the whole earth knows the truth of the world of spirit. Of course, they do no harm as they are here, beyond retarding their own spiritual progression. Once they realize that what they are doing to themselves and take the first step forward, their joy knows no bounds. They will realize the time they have apparently wasted. Now, it may be asked if, with the acquisition of knowledge and truth, these extensions of earthly religions into the spirit world are better done away with. What will you put in their place? It sounds like a condemnation of communal worship. By no means. We have our communal worship here, but it is purged of every trace of meaningless creeds, of doctrines and dogmas. We worship the great and eternal Father in truth, absolute truth. We are of one mind and one mind only, and no one is called upon to believe blindly or to profess to do so, something which is utterly incomprehensible to any mind. There are many, many things here which we do not understand, and it will take eons of time before we even have a faint gleam of understanding them. But we are not asked to understand them. We are asked to take them as they are. It makes no difference whatever to our soul's progression. We shall be able to progress far and far beyond that before we shall ever need to think about understanding such things. And so we have one mind in our worship of the All-Highest. Such are the matters we discussed. It was Edwin who expounded as we walked along in the beautiful air of God's heaven. Ruth espied a rather stately building set among some well-wooded grounds, which also aroused my curiosity. On appealing to our guide, Edwin told us that it was a home of rest for those who had come into spirit after long illnesses, or who had had a violent passing, and who were, in consequence, suffering from shock. We wondered if it would be possible to peep inside without appearing to be curiosity seekers. He assured us that it would be quite in order to do so, as he had given his services there and was therefore persona grata, added to which was the fact that he knew we had that necessary sympathy which would banish any thought of inquisitiveness. As we drew near, I could see that the building was in no sense a hospital in outward semblance, whatever its function might be. It was built in the classical style, 2 or 3 stories high, and it was entirely open upon all sides. That is to say, it contained no windows as we know them on earth. It was white in color as far as the materials of its composition were concerned, but immediately above it there was to be seen a great shaft of blue light descending upon and enveloping the whole building with its radiance, the effect of which was to give a striking blue tinge to the whole edifice. That this great ray was the downpouring of life, a healing ray, sent to those who had already passed here, but who were not yet awake. When they were fully restored to spiritual health, there would be a splendid awakening, and they would be introduced into their new land. I noticed that there were quite a number of people seated upon the grass in the grounds or walking about. They were relatives of those who were undergoing treatment within the hall of rest, and whose awakening was imminent, although doubtless they could have been summoned upon the instant when necessary. Yet, following their old earthly instinct, they preferred to wait close at hand for the happy moment. They were all supremely joyful and very excited, as could be seen by the expressions on their faces, and many were the friendly smiles we received as we walked among them. Many of them, too, came forward to welcome us among them, thinking that we had come for the same reason as themselves. We told them of our true purpose, however, and they sped us on our way. I observed that most of the people waiting in the gardens were not habited in their earth clothes, and I assumed that most of them had been in spirit for some considerable time. Such was not necessarily the case, Edwin told me. They had the right to wear their spirit robes by virtue of the fact that they were inhabitants of this realm we were now in, and the robes they wore were eminently suited to both the place and the situation. It is difficult to describe the costume, because so much rests in being able to give some comparison with a particular earthly fabric. Here we have no such material, and all outward appearances are produced not by the texture of the material, but by the kind and degree of light that is the essence of a spirit robe. Those that we now saw were in flowing form and of full length, and the colors, blue and pink in varying degrees of intensity, seemed to interweave themselves throughout the whole substance of the robes. They looked very comfortable to wear, and like everything here, they require no attention to keep them in a state of perfect preservation, the spirituality of the wearer alone accounting for that. The three of us were still wearing our earthly style of raiment, and Edwin suggested that for our present purposes we might change to our natural element in the matter of clothes. I was quite willing, of course, to fall in with any suggestion that he might like to make, as I turned to him for everything in my lack of knowledge. Ruth also seemed very keen to try this change, but the question that puzzled us both was how it was to be accomplished. Possibly there are people on the earth plane who are willing to believe that such a situation as this would involve the ceremony of being formally presented with a spirit robe in the presence of a goodly gathering of celestial beings who had come to witness the bestowing of our heavenly reward and to be officially invited to take our eternal rest. Let me hasten to say that such was emphatically not the case. What did take place was very simple, this. Immediately I had expressed the wish to follow Edwin's suggestion of discarding my earthly style of clothes. Those very clothes faded away, dissolved, and I was attired in my own particular spirit robe, of the same description as those I could see about me. Edwin's had changed likewise, and I noticed that his seemed to send out a greater strength of color than mine. Ruth's was the same as mine, and needless to say she was full of joyful delight with this new manifestation of the Spirit. My old friend had experienced the change before, so his costume was not new to him. But speaking for myself, and I am sure for Ruth, I never at any moment felt the slightest embarrassment or strangeness or self-consciousness in this revolutionary, as it might seem to be, alteration in our external appearance. On the contrary, it seemed quite natural and perfectly in order, and unquestionably it was in proper keeping with our present surroundings, the more so as I soon discovered when we walked into the home of rest. Nothing would have been more incongruous than earthly apparel in such a building, which in its interior disposition and accommodations was totally unlike anything to be seen upon the earth plane. As we entered, Edwin was greeted as an old friend by one who came forward to meet us. He briefly explained his mission and our presence there, and we were made welcome to see all that we wished.